Okay, so we're back at one more anti-book club, and this time, Jonathan, you want to talk about an author.
Yes, well, it's really difficult to choose one book by this guy. So what I'm going to do is recommend the whole of his work. It's not going to suit everybody. You're going to have to pick and choose to decide whether you like him or not. But I started reading him, I suppose, about 9 months ago, and I'm hooked. I think he has some of the most imaginative ideas. It's shorthand, if you don't listen to anything else. If he was to design a school, he would design Hyper Island. Okay, I mean, he's very much in line with the sort of Hyper Island thinking. His name is Cory Doctorow, and many people will have heard of him already. But I urge you, even if you've heard of him, to revisit, particularly as he's written some new books and done some new stuff very recently. He's the most prolific writer, blogger, audiobook publisher. He does so much. And he's sort of, he sets very high standards for how I'd like to be and how I'd like our students to be. And yeah, happy to tell you anything you want to know about him.
What's so special about him or his writing? Is there anything to do with?
I think, I mean, he's a science fiction writer. Actually, it's very hard to categorize, but I'd say that his big strengths are science fiction, but also he's a fantasy writer, and he's also a political and social condition commentator. So he's commenting on the role of technology. He's done lots of things, very interesting things in the past. I mean, he used to write a lot for Wired, and then he used to write for Boing Boing. He was a member of the Electronic Freedom Foundation, and in fact, he moved to the UK to run the European office of the EFF. Really important sort of early internet organization, still exists today. But I think he is, yeah, what makes me fascinated by him is that he has a very, very different view on many things, but particularly on the role of technology and how technology changes us and how it changes our society. And I love reading his stuff. All sorts of different things that he does, and he's obsessed with a few things. I can see I have similar sets of obsessions, not the same obsessions as he's obsessed with Disney, for example. He's written 2 books that where Disney is a central character. One of them is called Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, and the other one is called Makers. And I suppose Makers is perhaps the one that I was trying to think, which one should you start with if you're getting into Cory Doctorow for the first time? What would you read first? And I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to either suggest Makers, which is a sort of a book about the near future in which 3D printing plays a very big role, and the second book is a book called Little Brother. And Little Brother is a little bit older. He's written it. It imagines a time in which San Francisco, the Bay Area, has been attacked by terrorists. Very much a 9/11 sort of dystopian world. But he looks at the reaction of the security forces and how the security forces basically produce a solution that's worse than the problem. And he asks us to think about, he's not pro-terrorism in any way, but what he's asking you to think about is, are we in danger of overestimating what might happen and putting in place surveillance and armed security and drones and all sorts of things in such a way that actually it prevents us living a free life. And you can see this sort of weaved through his work, that it is it's very he's very much bringing a set of ideas together and exploring them in lots of different ways, exploring them in novels, exploring his writing, exploring his talking, exploring his blogs. I just love that. I just love the landscape in which he freely ranges and all the different things he looks at. And yeah, I think everybody who reads him would find lots to learn. I love that. I want to just tell you about a couple of things that I take away from it. I mean, he's a great maker. So they call the book Makers because it's as I say, it's about 3D printing. It's about a sort of underclass of people who use rubbish and old things and make new things, and about how suddenly people get excited about buying all this stuff, and they become very rich, and then it all collapses in on itself, and then they become very poor again. And there's a series of stories in Makers which I really like, but it was, you can make anything, all right, you should learn to make stuff. And then I suppose there's lots of examples where he's done stuff that you wouldn't normally expect. So one of the things I'm going to tell you is that almost all of his work can be read for free. Oh. You can download it in almost any format you like. So if you have a Kindle, you can download it on Kindle and whatever. And he is passionate about Creative Commons and the idea of giving things away. Now, what happens, of course, is you get your first book for free, and then you realize this guy makes a living out of writing. And I, for one, felt very strongly that I should then go on and buy some of his books. So I bought some. He says, by the way, don't buy the same books you've downloaded for free, because there's no point in doing that. And once you've got it, you've got it. But he says, if you don't want to buy it for yourself, buy it for a library, buy it for a school library. Go and get them a copy of the books. He has a huge campaign against Amazon, and in particular against Audible, because Audible refused to publish any books that don't have DRM. So he's very against the idea that we should secure things off so that you can't share them. He says, look, if you go back in time and you bought an audiobook and you read it and enjoyed it, you could then give it to somebody else. Well, you can't do that in the Audible world, and he's very against that. He says, look, once you own it, once you've enjoyed it, you should be able to give it to somebody else, and you can't. So recently, he crowdsourced with Kickstarter an audiobook version of one of his little brother books. And he raised $270,000 US. All right. He says he's made more money out of this book than he will make out of any other book, particularly as the book is already written, and what this is only for the audiobook. But it's I don't know. He's such a positive guy when it comes to things. But he makes me think. He makes me question what's going on. He makes me imagine the future, and he's a wonderful, wonderful storyteller.
And even like the way he behaves, and it's very in line with his own purpose, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, he's absolutely prolific. I happen to know that at the time we're recording this, he's at Disneyland again, by the way, because I listen to he has a podcast every week, and we're on a little break at the moment because he's taken his wife and child and some friends to Disneyland. Disneyland, yeah, big part of what he does, and it's great. So I really, really urge people to read it. I mean, I think if you're studying at Hyper Island, or you're thinking about studying at Hyper Island, and you sort of want to get into the minds that created Hyper Island, Cory Doctorow is I think a great place to start. It's that beautiful connection between storytelling and making and digital and the dystopian side of digital, and that we are in control of our future. And yeah, he just gets it. And I'm very thankful that people like that are around and that we can read them and enjoy them. So yeah, that's my tip for summer reading.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And yeah, thank you. And next, which one is the next book?
I don't yet. I mean, I'm reading a couple of things at the moment, so there's plenty to come. So don't worry, there'll be plenty more.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.